Hello and welcome back to Mr. Adelman's fantastic math class. Today we're going to try to use what we already know about midpoints and the midpoint formula to figure out if we're given an endpoint and the midpoint, how would we find the other endpoint? So let's take a look at the problem you might see. So we're going to find the coordinates of a missing endpoint. So it asks us, find the coordinate of x if m, which is negative 2, 2, is the midpoint of line segment xy, and y has a coordinate of 1, 5. So what I've gone ahead and done, and it might be helpful to you to do this as well, is I've graphed this. So I've got one endpoint at y, which is 1, 5, and m is our midpoint, and that's at negative 2, 2. And so what we have to do is find the value of x. And so the value of x would be somewhere on this dotted orange line. So we have to figure out what that x is. So what we're going to do is we're going to use our midpoint formula, which hopefully you remember is m parenthesis x1 plus x2 divided by 2, comma, y1 plus y2 divided by 2. And this is our x coordinates and this is our y coordinates. Well, in this particular example, we already have our midpoint. We already know what m is. I already know that m is negative 2, 2. And what I'm going to do is set this equal to my midpoint formula. And I'm going to plug in the information. Well, we don't have all the information given, but we do have at least one coordinate. And so I'm going to make this our y value. This is going to be our x1 and our y1. And we can plug that information in there. So I know my x1 for this particular case is 1. So 1 plus x2, because we're going to look for x2 and we're going to divide this by 2. And our y values, our y1 value is 5. So it's going to be 5 plus y2 all divided by 2. Okay, so all I've done there is I've taken our midpoint formula and just plugged in one of the points because we're looking for the second point. We're looking for x2 and y2. And I set that equal to what was given to us as our midpoint. This was given to us as our midpoint, so I've plugged that in. And so now what I have to do is figure out what I'm solving for. Well, I'm going to start with my x values. This is my x value, and this is my x value. So I'm going to set those equal to each other. So x values. Okay, so my x values, it's going to be this negative 2, and I'm going to set that equal to this, which is 1 plus x2 divided by 2. Now I'm going to go ahead and make sure you can see this here. Multiply both sides by 2. This is a little algebra for you. So I get negative 4 equals 1 plus x, because these are going to cancel out. And then I'm going to go ahead and subtract the 1 from both sides. And so I am left with negative 5 equals x2. So we have found our x values. Now we have to go back and find our y values. Well, I know that that's my y value, and that's my y value. So for the y values, I'm going to set this positive 2. I'm going to set that equal to the 5 plus y2 divided by 2. And so similar process to finding the x values. I'm going to multiply by 2, both sides by 2. And so that gives me a positive 4. And those are going to cancel out. And I get 5 plus y squared. I'm going to subtract both sides by 5. And so I'm left with negative 1 equals y2. Okay, so after that we have to sort of remember what the question is asking. So let's take a look. It says, find the coordinate of x if we're given the midpoint of x, y, and they give us y. So what I found is this third coordinate, or our endpoint. So I can see that on this line that I've drawn here, this dotted line, I'm going to turn that dotted line, I'm going to extend it and make it a one solid line. And so my value that I've come up with, which is x, I now know that x is going to be my x2, which is negative 5, and my y2, which is negative 1. So I'm going to go on my coordinate here, and I'm going to find negative 5, which is right there, and negative 2, which is right there. And so that is going to be the line segment x, y. So what I've done is I've found the third point, or the second endpoint. Okay, so let me move this up so you can see what we've done here. Yes, I understand that this can be a little confusing, so make sure you ask plenty of questions in class or on my blog. So just to reiterate, we're given the midpoint, and we set that equal to the midpoint formula with our x1 and y1 plugged in, and then we solve for x2 and we solve for y2. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me in person on my blog, and in class, feel free to ask me about the shortcut I can show you to find the missing endpoint. Thank you very much. Have a great day. I'll talk to you real soon.